tell you, enough about me. We can do whatever you want to do, but I got to tell you, I know how hard, how much effort, how focused one has to be, and you are, to churn out the level of content on a daily basis, week to week to week. And I am just blown away and re-energized on this whole Duane thing from the point that we met at Jeff's presentation with you and the cat that did King Curtis.
Yep.
And I'm having more fun than I ever thought I would have at this point, spending time back between 68 and to a whole new extent, listening to the Beacon and the shows that are coming on Monk over the weekends.
Yep.
And I'm hearing stuff that, frankly, I just, I basically shut down. I knew it was going on. I had a little interest, but I never dialed and listened to. So I've got a whole new appreciation. And then some of the stuff you bring up, man, I got to stop what I'm doing or what I'm reading and immediately go into search. So I am a huge fan, to say the least. But I got to tell you, how the fuck do you do it?
All right. So first of all, my dude, I've had a bit of a tough week on this front, very much. So your words, and I'm gonna say they have come on top of a text exchange I had with J. Johnny Johnson this week about I had sent him a book for his daughter and a small gift because I had seen him play Big Band of Brothers last January.
Right.
Which is the last time he toured, and he played with Drew Smithers, who's now with the Marcus King Band and is a friend of mine from for a decade.
Right.
Like just solid dude, and a Duane guy like us, he's one of those first people that I realized, okay, there is a whole army of these Duane of us who sort of understand that like this guy was just like super in a variety of ways. And I told my story, I had to put it into a book. Anyway. And then what you just said, I want to acknowledge because, we receive compliments I'm tough on myself and we receive compliments poorly. And I just want to stop for a moment and receive your compliment and say thank you. I feel it from you. Like you're one of those people that like, no matter, here's the thing, I don't know you. So listen, when I send shit to my friends, the catnip, I know what I'm going to get back. My friend Steve Marshall, I will send this conversation to him and he's going to call me and tell me all about how wonderful this was. Because he's 70, he's 20 years older than me. We've been best friends for 25 years and we met seeing Frog Wings, the first version of Frog Wings that Butch took out before Kofi Burbridge joined. And we met at a bar in Orlando and we met the same reason you and I met, out of our love for this little token piece of life. And for me, it's just an interesting way to look at the world, right? And you share that. And it makes me happy because, listen, whatever I send to Steve, I often know what I'm going to get back. I know what catnip's going to work. I don't know what's going to work for you. But you always feed me something back. So it's like jazz, right? It's like, oh, fuck. Okay, Tony's there. He knows what I'm talking about. And I can do this little thing, and you're like, shit, I went and listened to this, and that makes me think, okay, it's it's the unending conversation. I've been trying to hammer that point home, just on Substack, because social media is not the place for that, and people want to draw you into it, and I'm like, I don't want to block you because you're not being a troll, but we're not going to do this here because I speak about this in real depth over here, however it goes. So
well, you lay your soul out on the line in Substack for sure.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful. And so all right, I'm going to do the introduction just quickly, or just get us. No, but all this is, I don't know what we're going to do at this beginning, but this is Tony Yoken. I want everybody to understand. TY, and I'm going to say, he said the gig, he mentioned, we did this gig in Memphis with a dear friend of mine and actually good friend of TY's named Jeff Kolath. He runs the Stax Museum in Memphis and is He's a Duane guy too. We're good. We've been good buds as museum people and music people. He knows TY, and he goes, TY and I connected at this event. It was a killer event, which we didn't tape, and I'm pissed about. And he's, TY's in the audience, and all I knew was this, big hippie with, the beard and the hair. And he asked, I forget what question, and then we started talking. I didn't know TY's last name. I didn't know it was Tony Yoken or any of that stuff. It was just TY, and I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to be rude. And then all of a sudden, immediately Jeff says, no, TY's for real, Bob. And Jeff's always, you know how he is. He's all real low key. Like he knows exactly how cool shit is. He knows exactly what he did when he put us together. So I want to tell the world here, we are all familiar with this record. And we're going to start with this, and then we're going to go backwards just a bit to identify. Now, this man got a tiny little credit, and I think it says compiled by, I'm reading it out. This is the man, and he's my friend, our friend. And I mean, dude, that just, like Jeff told me that, and I'm like, oh, wait, what? So I am speaking to finally, but TY you have multiple levels when we start digging in. And you have a connection to this latest release, this 5-man band show from Manley Fieldhouse. I think that is what brought you into the Capricorn universe. You have stories that we've shared about Frank Fenter, Phil Walden. You've talked a bit with me, about Highway Call and, just being in and around Macon as all this is going on. And then I think you also play. You're a guitarist.
Yeah, I hack around, and I look at them a lot. And actually, thanks to you, and I haven't picked it up, but I definitely went ahead to quickly look up mine, the C major 7th.
So for everybody's benefit, I took an Instagram post from somebody else of a really killer picture of Duane that Sydney Smith took, I'm pretty sure. And it wasn't one that I don't think anybody had seen. And it's really weird because there's a very small amount of people who can say that, who like a picture that even I'm like, because I've just been looking at this stuff for so long online. It was Allman Brothers was the first thing that I did it on Yahoo on my Netscape browser in it was actually, did it on Prodigy in 1994. Prodigy, Allman Brothers, first thing I did. So I've just been looking at, I have an eye for the visual of it. So what TY's mentioning, is Duane's playing the guy wrote, the original person wrote, here's the chord. He says something like Duane playing opening chord of Elizabeth Reed. And all I did was repost it and said C major 7. On Facebook, what's really cool, so it's a C major 7 chord. It's a pretty cool chord. It's that ringy chord that you hear at the beginning of that track. Duane cranks it twice, boop, boop, on Fillmore East, right as he's doing his little intro. And then a bunch of people on Facebook, you put the A. Actually, Dylan Adams did it too on my Instagram, but Facebook, said, Berry plays the A, which makes it an A minor 9. And then you're like, the guitar nerds come out, this is like Allman guitar nerds. And so C major 7, it's that opening chord. That was just the other day. I just put that up, and that was, I pride myself on having good content, but that was just something I saw, and I was like, dang, that's a great picture. And whenever you see him playing that chord, 100% of the time, that's what he's playing. I imagine, because I've tried to play it with Dreams, and I don't think it sounded right.
Hey, again, back to the content that is so creative that you produce, that you come up with. There's an example.
Yeah.
Books me every time.
Thank you. I mean, okay, so like I say on Substack, right? I'm my own audience. I'm entertaining myself. And it's just a matter of, there's some places I could do some entertaining, possibly. And,
And that's in my radio career, that was the highlight. Entertaining myself and hoping and being able to present it to a much wider audience on a one-on-one basis, and that through my whole time in broadcast and radio and media, that always rung true, even in the most tightly formatted and corporate situations. And it didn't always work, but after said and done, I knew I came up with something pretty entertaining for me.
And that's where I'm at right now, and I've been wanting to talk to you, like get an interview, and I got some other ones set up. I think you and I talked a bit about the logo, the stacked logo, when I wrote that post about the ABB from the Enlightened Rogues. Did we talk about that? The guy who designed that cover? John Keehee is his name.
Uh-huh.
He didn't get he didn't get
Is
paid
that
for
on
that.
Win-Lose? Did you say Win-Lose or Draw?
No, it's on Enlightened Rogues.
Oh, Enlightened Rogues.
It was after you had left. He didn't get paid for it because Capricorn declared bankruptcy, and it's the logo they've been using for 40 years, for the last 40 years of their career. It's a cool story, It's the one with the one, it's got the saloon window. You know what Enlightened Rogues looks like? And with the Allman Brothers band. So, okay, so let's start with this. You have a story that you've recounted a bit, where the Allman Brothers hit, because it was early, right? And somebody played the album for you, or was it on the radio? And what radio station? And what town? And that shit. Whatever, all that.
I'll go back to, this would have been my junior, senior year in high school. Junior year in high school, and I hung out at a local radio station. I grew up outside of New York City in White Plains, New York. Not in White Plains, but the station was there. And at any rate, it fed my interest in what I ended up doing. And it was all based on great music, finding music. And FM, progressive FM in New York, started to kick in a couple of years before that. And I got hooked pretty quick, but I would listen on AM to WWRL, the R&B station out of Harlem. And they played an outrageous version of Hey Jude by Wilson Pickett. So that's where it starts. And I would buy albums. And I also, even before that, and certainly at that point in time, was very focused in and intrigued with the Atlantic, Atco, Cotillion, Stax, Volt, all the umbrella limbs of Wexler and Ahmad Ertegun. And if you bought those records, you would open up, and the insert, the paper wrapper for the record, would have little thumbnail pictures, post-stamp pictures of the releases, and I would study those things. And a lot of them were R&B. I won't go through. You know if you know.
Right.
So I saw that on one of them. I couldn't tell you which Atlantic album it might have been. It could have been Iron Butterfly. It could have been the Rascals. I did have those albums, but there was that picture, the green album cover with Wilson Pickett.
Yep.
And I had to go out and get it, and I did. And then I would scour the liner notes with credits and whatnot, the stories and the credits. And I don't even know if they listed instruments at that point, but at some point down the line, as I heard about this new group, the Allman Brothers Band, again through FM radio in New York City, in basically late 69, 70. Although I didn't really connect at that point, right. But Allman Brothers, and I do remember going back at some point to the Pickett album jacket and look at it. And if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to pull it out, but I think it's listed as David Allman.
I was just fixing to say that. It is listed as David Allman. You wouldn't have even known.
I'm looking at David Allman, Allman Brothers, and as I got into it, at some point between the release of the first album and before Idlewild, I was always wondering, was there a typo? put that aside because we found out pretty quickly, yeah, it was a typo, but that guitar sound. And then at the point that Revival at Iowa South came out, as I was hunting record stores in New York City, cutout bins and whatnot, I go through for R&B, and then that's where I started to find these killer records. The Arthur Conley. I was always into Aretha Franklin, but I was just stunned with that Arthur Conley record. And that's kind of where my own, my own collecting, listening, studying, and of course there was no internet, so you had to do it the old-fashioned way.
Yep.
And maybe you ran into somebody who was expert at a record store who knew more, and I get, information like that. But also with my interest in radio, as I went to school in September of '70 at Syracuse University. And, the first thing when I visited after I've been accepted, went up there, when I was still in high school with my dad, the first place we stopped was at WAER-FM. There was this prefab World War II shack where they had the radio station, FM 88. And, that was my focus going to Syracuse. So I wanted to get in there, see what happens. At any rate, a lot of cool things happened there. It was, as it turned out, literally a professional incubator for many, many people in radio, television, music, media, record labels, especially from that era when I was there between, in the early 70s.
So give me quickly, I got WWRL, that's the Harlem station, that's the AM.
Yeah.
That would be like, listen, WLAC down this away, and actually everybody did listen to that. What was the station in White Plains that you would go hang at?
I was WFAS. We would tune in to find out if we had a school closing. But I would hang out there, and from the time I was like about 14 on the weekends and sweep floors and whatnot.
That stuff's candy for people who, I like that sort of stuff, because when you start talking radio stations, people start thinking about their own experiences with these things. And then also, there may be some other WFAS people out there be like, hey, I used to do that too. And, that's always a cool thing. What about the FM station in New York? I know, was it WOR, the first one that went FM?
ORFM were also, ORFM, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then ABC FM became PLJ, and in its earliest
really,
in its earliest years, which of course was a station to listen to pretty much right up through the Delaney and Bonnie deal.
Yep.
With Duane and Greg sitting in. And then some, and then they tightened up. That was an ABC corporate thing, but that was a great station. And frankly, I probably heard more Allman Brothers songs in their regular, as the DJs picked music and played music. That's probably where it really kicked in. Any WFM also was a factor in New York City.
Yeah. Okay, and then you mentioned going up to Syracuse, and I think this is important for even for me for understanding. So here's the multiple levels that that I'm getting here is I meet you, and you're just a guy here listening to a talk about a book that I wrote on Duane Allman,
right,
and then we start peeling layers back, and I'm like, oh wait, you produced, like, it was, and then I think it was like, he used to be in the record business, and it was like you produced this. You pulled this really great package together, and then then come to find out like that you had this Manley Fieldhouse gig, and this radio station that you work at. Like I'm not. It's like Forrest Gump almost in how many, and I mean that in a nice way. I guess that's a terrible way to say it, but you're like there at all of these moments that I know, externally. Like the Manley Fieldhouse. This is crazy, TY, but the Manley Fieldhouse show was the first 5-man band show I ever traded for. And the second time I realized how damn good, it's like where almost Long Live ABB kind of came from the very first time, going, man, they didn't just end at the worst time ever. They didn't just end. And you were at that show. I just find it mind-boggling. And so that's my setup for you about like, okay, WAER FM at Syracuse. And you were talking a little bit about what a blossoming that was of, this time. And I'll say real quickly, the Allman Brothers made their name, as you know, on FM radio and at college campuses. And their first 2 years, that you'll hear a lot like on the road 300 days a year. Absolutely. Probably played 250 gigs a year. Many of them free. They were really hand to mouth, and it was in that area up in the Northeast down through the South where they were really got the most attention and the most work. So we have bootlegs. They weren't, but SUNY Stony Brook is a place where a lot of shows, including one that's been released, have come out. And all of these, so the college campuses were bringing in talent because student fees were being used to do that. And I have one of these days you'll see me, and you're one of the reasons for this. I'm going to write more on this about the importance of these student activities boards, and where colleges were the universities were places where you kind of learned how to do shit, cool stuff, and they did y'all did a lot of cool stuff with your radio, television productions. That's why we have these things recorded, and I'm fascinated with that part for you. Like when we're going to talk about this Manley show and that process, how because that's something that has survived that is now finally seeing some official release. Finally, so let's talk about Syracuse, and then you can find your way back into this. I just want to set up a little bit on this.
Yeah, well, the college station, FM 88 at that point, and frankly, a smaller group of broadcast students, and not exclusively broadcast, but people into music for a period of time, we were able to run it as a 24-hour progressive FM rock and roll music station. And it went for about 3 or 4 years at that level. It had moved from block programming and then putting a little bit at nighttime, whatever, in terms of, hip or FM rock type stuff, progressive rock. Although I want to say it was probably sometime in my freshman year that there was an allowance for us to go 24 hours because it would sign off at midnight. And if I'm not mistaken, I know that early on I volunteered and wanted to do as many of those overnight shows as I possibly could because I wanted to be on the air. But put that aside, besides Manley with the Allman Brothers, a few months prior to that, we were able to do the Grateful Dead live from the Syracuse War Memorial, which I believe was in the fall of '71, and also through the very proactive, and I'll tell you this, and the study you're talking about or wanting to write about, how the student activity committees and concert committees at colleges, especially from Buffalo to Boston.
Yeah.
Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Albany, Spring, right across, as well as up and down 87, down to New York City. So we got a lot of touring. And frankly, over the years in my time in Syracuse and with WOUR FM out of Utica, we covered all of Central New York with 50,000 watts. Doing live concert broadcasts was a staple, man, lived for it. And at the point that I was able to win a weekend job down in New York City or outside of New York City in Long Island at WLIR, which was the summer of '72, which was after the Manley show, that radio station did monthly, if not weekly, live concerts at my father's place via ultrasonic. And they also did ultrasonic sound, which was a recording studio right around the corner in Hempstead.
Yep.
And so while I was there, I know we did Marshall Tucker, we did Little Feat. I'm certain Bonnie Raitt was in there. I know we did a show with Lou Reed. just after he had released Walk on the Wild. I mean, it was a lot of.
You're killing me. Because
I would, again, this. I was living it, man.
That's the first little feat I ever got into, that particular show, and I also had that Marshall Tucker band. I've had it. I think I had them both on cassette. That's how long I had them. Keep going. I'm sorry, Tony.
The Warner Brothers Music Series started in June of '72 at LAR, and it went for a while. It became Dr. Pepper, I think, after that. But at any rate, put that aside. So I'm on the radio at the Syracuse University station, and a lot of times I'm playing an Allman Brothers record and a Wilson Pickett record and an Aretha record. Push Push comes out, which blew me away, still blows me away. Discovering Duane Allman playing for Laura Nyro is just an amazing piece of music. So I was just hooked for the music and was able to share it on the radio. And I guess on an official basis, it was the Manley show. Through the Manley show really spurred my focus and interest to a whole nother level. And because of different opportunities, from being music director at the college station, music director at WOUR, working with the music and program director at WLIR, I started to meet the promo guys and the Warner and the Capricorn guys. I would always be bugging them. Did you know about this record or that record? Of course. So at any rate, that was really my focus then. And I'll admit this at this point, there was a period of time where I thought I might want to write a book about Duane Allman.
My dude.
And then I said, no, I'm gonna leave that to a historian and a real writer.
But we're gonna talk about that because
I'll put it on the radio though.
Tony, we're gonna talk about this with TY. We're gonna talk about this because you did write a book. But keep going. I want to honor that.
Yeah. So also two things that you brought up here, and one very timely. With the Manley release on CD, and I know it's digitally available because I've been listening to it on the Amazon Music Unlimited just because it's handy and easy. And the other thing that really kicked in was, I believe, the guitar player conversation with Linksy. And what he brought out, something that really passed me over, the significance, the heaviness, how important the 5-man band was, and also there's not too much documented evidence from that period of time, which makes the Manley show that much more special, I believe.
Yeah. And for sure on that, and I'll add one more piece to that because, I wrote a whole chapter of this in Play All Night, and, I ended the book with this era because when Berry died, that's where the original band really was done. Despite the fact Chuck had joined and this or that, like everything changed permanently in October of '71. Everything changed doubly so, in November of '72. And when Berry died, and my wife's a mental health counselor, so we talk a lot about mental health in this house. We have, and our kids have been pretty good about that. And I've shared a bit where I am there at different times. And one thing that I didn't talk about in Play All Night. One reason is you'll probably notice that I stayed real clear of personal stuff. There was no reason for me to go in those waters. Not for any other reason than I've never been one who loved those details anyway. And the other books had kind of spelled it out, but I will say that tour probably cost Berry Oakley his life, in that had he had resources today to pause, stop, get, that's a PTSD. And, by the same token though, Berry had a son during that time with oh my God, I'm blanking on her name. Julia, Negron, and he's playing music now, and his grandkids are his sons are playing music. So like something came out of that time period that would not have come. I don't know. I'm getting at is just saying it's a really important time period, and for me,
well, let me add something to what you're saying, because listening closely now 3 or 4 times to the Manley show, and one of the times was where I was in the car for the whole time, so I had it cranked, and another one of the listens was through AirPods. But looking at some pictures, and it may have been out of the Syracuse newspaper, and looking at the actual CD cover and information and stuff, it brought back to me. And also, I actually had not listened. I mean, I've had friends send me the bootleg CD, and somewhere I got it on reel to reel, and probably have it on a cassette in the attic. My dubs. But I hadn't listened to that concert probably since, I don't know, 70, maybe since 75. Mm-hmm. And I certainly wouldn't have listened to the whole thing, but might not have listened to, maybe I might have put a song from the show on the radio. That may have been the last time I heard it. So I haven't heard it from beginning to end. And so, and I've talked about it with you and other people over the years. I'm just speaking from my memory. And I always said it was a Berry Oakley thunderfest on that bass guitar, as I remember. Now, listening to the digitally remixed show is 4 times now, seeing those pictures, here's what it brought me back to. From what I was doing at that show was laying cable for the radio station to get the broadcast, working with closely with 2 of my closest friends and broadcast colleagues who are very well cited on the release. Jeff Charter wrote the notes for the album release, who was the University Union concert director and booked the show. As a matter of fact, you'll get a kick out of this, knowing that we were going to do this. I sent him a message the other day. I said, how much, do you recall what the contract was with Paragon? He said $7,500 for the Allmans. I thought they were up to 20,000 or 25 at that point, but that's 7,500. Dr. John was 3,500. And Wet Willie, who no showed, and I don't remember the story behind that, they were contracted for 750.
Whoa.
So that would go back to your future look into the college concert business and whatnot. Yeah. But here's what I remember so much seeing those pictures, because it was nighttime, and it was a dark building, dirt track, literally. They were wearing their shades, man, and they didn't look real happy. And for me, I'm laying wire, and I had to go at one point. I can't remember why, but they sent me back into the dressing room, and I stuck my head in there and looked around. And I knew who the players were. I knew the road crew, who they were. I knew Bunky. I knew who Bunky was. I hadn't met him at that point or done any work, but I saw them all there, man, and it was a really intense scene. And I know I looked around and going, man, I don't think I should be in here. So I did whatever I had to do, and I got out of there real quick. But
let's pause on that story. Because this is a part of rock and roll that that only barely ever gets touched on. This is the piece that I think about too, as it's why I stay away from the personal stuff, because there's a personal cost to your art, period. And what's weird is I'm feeling it more than ever by doing these kinds of things. I'm getting my own coaching through it, and here are people. and what I think the first thing that I always reacted to as a human being, as a guy who plays, play guitar. I've always played guitar. I love bands. I love the cooperation of them and this and that, is that when their leader, their number one guy died, they played at his funeral, and then they went on a tour, just gutted it out, and that's what you're talking about. Like that was not easy for them. And drugs and, the success, because by this point, Eat a Peach had hit number 4. They were,
and they had to go out and promote. I mean, that was the drive to promote. They had to play. That's what the band is. They played to promote.
Yep.
The playing
and the album was what they sold. Like so they had, it was like, and we missed this. I didn't touch on it as much in the book, but the record business, how it worked and how you made money. Now it's flipped on its head and people are figuring out. But back then is you put out a record, you toured the record, and the record sold, and then you did it again and and again and again. The record was the lead. Now it's the tour.
Sidebar question: Is there any film tape of the funeral with the band playing, with the musicians playing?
It's funny you say that. I think I might have heard there is, but if there were, I would love to be able to. I'd love to be able to listen just to feel it, to feel it. Well, that is, my brother and I played at my mother's funeral. He asked me to, and she died. She was younger. Younger than anybody expected, and I remember like when he asked me, I was like, I don't know, And I was like, I can't not, and then I was like, okay, this is the only way I know how to do this, and that's what always amazes me. And it's why I included a picture of it in the book, like that was a picture that I thought was important to, make a statement, because had they stopped, which by all rights they would or should have, right, with this tragic death, they would have ended right there, Instead, it kept going, had another huge tragic loss, and then became the biggest band in the world, and that's nuts. I want to go back to real quick. So y'all decided, the student activities board or whatnot decided to put the show on, and then y'all decided to simulcast it on the radio, and you have to make a deal with Capricorn or with the Allman Brothers to do that. Is there an extra fee to do it on the radio?
No, and Jeff writes about it. If you've seen the notes on the release, he was in touch through Paragon and then directly with Walden, and I think that the radio station had a position. There's college radio, and then you had stations like FM 88 at that point in time that were actually making the difference, breaking acts, selling vinyl. And I think that was pretty well known. And, the promo guys were working the college radio station. They would actually come in, the label promo guys. Some of them were specifically college reps, but we also had the actual pros that were coming in from New York, from Boston, from Buffalo. The regional guys and the local guys would come in with records. So the station had a reputation, very good reputation. So I don't really know how that was negotiated. I just know one. As I was a sophomore, I was excited. The Allman Brothers were going to be playing at SU. Gotcha. 2, with the radio, we were all over it. We were promoting any concerts we were bringing on campus. It was all in house. It was a university. We worked closely with the people that did concerts. There was a lot of collaboration. Very collegial, a lot of collaboration. We were all in it for the music. That was the deal. And all of a sudden, one day, looks like we may be able to broadcast the Allmans like we did with the Grateful Dead. And a lot of the stuff also, as I recall, was very last minute. You didn't know until maybe a day or 2 or 3 and you had to you had to order phone lines and whatnot. And I mean, there was still radio up until it got digital. You always had to deal with ordering phone lines. Trust me.
Right. So you're running a feed. So you're running a feed up. Did you say that y'all also ran video, or did I?
Yeah. No, that was the other thing.
Like, where's that?
Crazy. Well, the University Union, which was, I guess, I don't know how you describe it, but the concerts came out of that, student activities. They got a lot of money from however they put it together, and from a media and creative media standpoint, right around that time, at the beginning of '72, University Union got the equipment for a video, basically for video capability to shoot and produce, and may have actually started to wire some of the buildings, some of the dorms and whatnot for closed circuit. So I don't know if it was the very first outing for UU Video, but they were out there, and they evidently, I don't know how that, I don't even, that was an afterthought to me because I really wasn't that involved with that thing. But yeah, no, there was a video, and I remember, now I haven't seen the video since after the show in '72. But yeah, there is a video, and I imagine there are copies of that running around.
I was stunned when you told me that, though, and I've also not been one who's ever tracked down like sources. Like, I didn't realize this was an FM show that or something like that. Continue though.
So this would have been, was it 20? Yeah, it may have been. It may have been in March of 20. It was a cold winter afternoon out of nowhere. I get a 617 phone call, Massachusetts, Boston typically. And it's Bert Holman on the phone. And Bert's involved with the Allman Brothers music. And he also did, I think he goes back to American University and may have put together the American University release. And again, through associates over the years, in some cases going back to Syracuse, and with my time with Sirius XM, he was routed to me to find out about the Manley show. And the reason he was routed to me, I took the tape that I had and I brought it with me to radio stations that I worked at after I worked in upstate New York. So I played it on WLIR-FM on my show at least a couple of times. I don't know if I played the whole concert.
Right.
I might have. I very well might have, but I don't remember. I know I played some of it for sure. And I know I put it on the air probably. I'm certain I put it on the air in Knoxville for the short time that I was on in Knoxville. And that was in late '74. And then, of course, it got played on occasion back at WOUR in New York. But Bert got routed to me. He said, we hear there's who's got it? What can you tell me? So at any rate, I said, you got to talk to Jeff. Steve Huntington, who is with Radio Margaritaville, put that together for Buffett and was Sirius XM till he retired. He does the MC and the stage announcement. It was so much fun to hear. I forgot, Greg actually starts the concert, dedicating it to the fans and brother Duane. And then he paused, and I guess it was set up this way. Steve must have come on stage or was on stage and was waiting for Greg. Greg wanted to do it this way. And then Steve kicked it off with his, was famous that night. It's famous today. The best damn band in the land.
Best damn band you're ever going to hear.
Yeah, he came up with that.
What's his name, Jeff who?
Full credit. Steve Huntington.
Steve Huntington. I got that. Thank you for that. That's H-U-N.
Huntington. Yep, just like it is. H-U-N-T-I-N. And Jeff Chard, Char. Have you seen the package yet?
Yeah, you had sent me a preview of it, and I remember, seeing a bit of it. I haven't ordered it yet, because I want it for the line. I'm a liner note, like just like you, and this is. I mean, I don't lament technology in the ways a lot of people do. I don't instinctively do it. A lot of times I'll ask myself, like, why am I saying this? You know why I miss physical media? Because your name's in this, and I don't think your name's on my Spotify, and not because that pulls credit from you or anything like that. It's more like I'm much more interested in talking. I'm very interested in talking to you, with this connection, and I would never have known that if it wasn't for liner notes. Just like you chasing this, we all did it. I used to read. Clapton. I had this Clapton greatest hits that my guitar teacher had given me one year for my birthday, and it was, some Blues Breakers stuff and the stuff with Champion Jack Dupree, all that stuff, and it was like the Blues Breakers. Oh wait, Robert Johnson. Let me go over here. Or Muddy Waters, or McKinley Moore, whatever the names were. That's how. And then like all of that. Sort of puts itself into the best damn band.
Hey, look, you got me listening to Eddie Hinton demos the other night after one little mention.
Man.
So all I could say is I thank you. You got me listening to stuff that I've had this thing, and I may have listened to it, half-assed listened to it one time. I listened to the whole thing the other night. It's Muscle Shoals purity, man. It's wild.
That's another thing too, and they call it's a paradox of choice, right? You and I are both, we are musical omnivores, and we have been listening. You have 20 years more worth of listening than I do, simply because you're older than I am. But it's the catalog and the encyclopedia and the ease of, okay, I can just go and click and do this rather than, put on a record or. It's just the way it goes. And for me, I have had to practice being intentional, especially to digest things I want to digest, similar to how you've done with this Manley show. Like, I have yet to do, I want to, and I know as soon as I do it, I have to write, I'm going to have to write about it. I'm not quite ready to write it, write about it. But, I just want to say that's sort of how I rolled with it. And today, I was having problems on my Spotify, and I was like, wait, I have the album, and I have a vintage copy that's all crackly of the album, and I'm fixing to talk to the guy who pulled this package together, and I want to get into detail on this a bit, because I'm fascinated. You end up at Capricorn at the peak of craziness and success and excess. And they had already recognized with the first anthology that they had something that this was going to sell. And then somehow they came up with this idea to do a second one. And somehow you got hired to do it. And then I want to talk about how you pick tracks. I noticed most of them are Atlantic tracks, and I imagine that was a rights issue, but I want to talk a bit about that too. But I want to set this little piece up. Just a bit, let's talk about Anthology II, Duane Allman Anthology. I think it came out 74.
Yeah.
Anthology 1 was 72, at the end of 72, and it was a huge hit. It was a big hit.
So, yeah. First off, over this period of time, before Manley, after Manley, during my time at Syracuse, and while I was at Syracuse, I was driving 6-7 hours to do weekend overnights on Long Island at LIR. I mean, I was living it. It's what I wanted to do, but I was still hunting records for credits. So I was just overjoyed to find the Soul Survivors record with that one cut on it. Like, how crazy is that? And I remember there was a French rock and roll magazine that somehow I got my hands on. I may actually have it up in the attic. I wish if I do, I want to find it. You would get a kick out of it. But it had all those Grand Canyon desert photos of the almonds that I think Twigs took.
Yep.
And it was an article it was basically a history of the Allman Brothers in French. And so I'm going to share this. This is crazy. My girlfriend at the time, who was good and spoke French, I got her to read it to me, read it to me. But in it, I could see, you know, they had names, Wilson Pickett, they had all these other artists, but they talked about Arthur Conley, and I found that The Soul Survivors. I don't know if they mentioned Johnny Jenkins. I'm sure they did. Ronnie Hawkins, Otis Rush, and some of these others were included in this French biography, The Allmans. And so Pam, my girlfriend, who's my wife now, so I remember going through that in my fascination. But then Duane Allman Volume 1 comes out, and that really blew me away. But I thought to myself, there's some great things on it. There's some incredible things on this record. But I think they missed a lot. And so this is 72 into 73. So during this time, man, I was a music director at WAER, and I would basically do as many shows as I could a week, because you got paid. You had to sign on as the transmitter engineer, and you had to qualify for that. But you got whatever minimum was, $2.25, $2.50. But I worked. Hell, I do 5 shows a week. That's 20 hours. At $2.25 or $2.50, man, that's good money.
You're rolling.
I would, I would have paid to do that, but I would, and I think I was crazy enough to volunteer to do the morning show, because I do the whole morning show for the week. No one wanted to get up to do mornings, and I would sometimes just do an hour of different Duane Allman selections, and I would do an air check, reel to reel. And so as music director, and I'm dealing with the promo guys, I'm actually talking to Dick Wooley, national promotion director in Macon. And I'm saying, hey, great record. We're all over. There's more than enough for volumes 2 through whatever. You guys, you know about that, don't you? They didn't know it. They kind of knew about it, but they didn't really know about it.
Yeah.
But I said, you guys need to do volume 2. I said, I'm going to send you a tape from my show from the other day. You get a kick out of it. I sent him a tape. And he called me back and he said, that's pretty cool. So before long, we launched that station at 96.9 in Utica, commercial station. And myself, Steve Huntington, Jeff Chard, all the guys did the Manley thing, and then some other students from the college. We got a 50,000 watt radio station in Utica, rock and roll. So that was on June 1st, 73. So I'm on the air afternoons, Steve's on at nights. We're co-music directors, as I recall. And he loved the Dead. I also loved the Dead, but he was Dead. I was Allman. He loved the Allman. That's just how it broke down. We still
how it goes. I know how it goes. Yes.
You can't miss. You're not going to miss on either one, obviously, and it connects. And I just started talking to Capricorn and sending them tapes of my shows. I don't know if I sent them a lot. I mean, I might have sent them half a dozen over a period of months, then some. And then I guess at some point into early 74, Wooly got a call. He said, can you speak to Phil Walden? He's got a couple of things he wants to kick around with you. Now, here's the crazy thing, Bob, man. I'm 21. I don't know my ass from my elbow, honest to God. I might have thought I knew a little bit. I think I thought I knew a lot, but I didn't know shit. But, next thing I know, he says, we think we want you to come down here and do a little something with us. But they weren't real specific. But I was all game. I'm thinking, man, if I can get a gig with Capricorn Records, that's really what I would love to do. Meanwhile, I'd gotten a call from Baltimore, Maryland, from an FM station right about the same time. They wanted me to come in and do afternoons, which I was all set to do. Really, really would have wanted to do. Absolutely would have wanted to do. I went down to visit them in Baltimore. Meanwhile, I've been talking to Capricorn, but then things got quiet. You know, I mean, I couldn't really bug them on this thing if anything was going to happen. He makes me an offer to Baltimore. I accept. I go back up to WOUR in Utica. I'm ready to give him notice. And the program director in Baltimore calls me. He says, I need you to talk to the general manager. I said, great. General manager gets on and he says, excited to have you come in and we're going to pay you whatever it was. He lowballed me. It wasn't the number that I had agreed to with the program director. And I said to them, I said, no, that's not what we agreed to. It's got to be this. He said, no, that's not it. That's not what it is. I said, okay. And I said, okay. And that was the end of the call. PD calls me back. He is crazy and intense. And he says, what happened? I said, looks like we're not going to do business. And I told him what happened. And then he starts to give me shit. Well, it didn't go well, and that was that. But then, like the next hour, I get a call from Macon, Georgia. And it's Walden and Wooley on a conference, you know, together. I don't know if they're in the room, whatever. They're going, can we get you down here next week? I booked that so quick, yes. I was there, and it was to do Duane Allman Volume 2. Now, we sat down, and I think what they had in mind, I don't know. You know, it's funny. I don't ever know that I knew what they had in mind. And you got to remember, I'm 21 years old. So this 73, I'm not even 20. Yeah. And I'm thinking what I kind of get a sense they may want me to write liner notes.
Okay.
For what? Yeah, okay, I could do that. I certainly felt like I could do that. But I think leading up to this, I don't know if I sent them specifics. When I got down there, I know I got on a typewriter and I put an idea of songs that I think should be considered and even sequenced a certain way. And at some point, quickly, early on, that's what the project became. Because they didn't really lay out a plan or anything. And so, you know, part of this is, you know, creative, progressive thinking. You got it, you know, and it was an opportunity. And, you know, no one was going to tell me what to do at that point. So I'm thinking maybe I just keep going until somebody says no.
Somebody tells me to stop.
So that started like, I remember I left upstate New York. It snowed though, right before I left. It was early May. And flew down there. And they put me in the Macon Hilton. At that point, they had a deal going there. They had they put all the musicians and visit, you know, everyone stayed there. And initially, before I went back up to get my car and drive back down, I would walk from the Hilton to 535 Cotton. And I would go next door a couple times a week to the H&H.
Yep.
If I was going to eat anything at all. And I just immersed myself in the building, in the actual headquarter building. And then basically the mission became, I would walk from Cotton down to the studios. a few blocks. And again, I don't have the map in front of me. I don't know if it's north. I don't know. Maybe you're walking north to the studios.
No, if my north-south is right, I think it's south.
South
along what's
could
now
be.
MLK. I can't remember what I think it might have been called Broadway back in the day.
And
I always mess that up.
in the studio, this is where it really got wonderful. In the studio, basically, my contact was Johnny Sandlin
At Capricorn.
at the studio. Well, here's the deal. You think the promo guys knew the music or the songs or the tracks? Phil may have knew about. Now, Fenner, it's funny. I'm reading some stuff that you have put out. And I should have known this. I had some engagement with Frank Fenner that was very musical focused. But Johnny Sandlin knew them. He knew the history and the music. So and one of the things that I was fascinated about, I brought with me, was the tape that we had gotten. It was a first or second generation, or must have been a second generation 7.5 track, 7.5 IPS half track of Ludlow, which we got at the radio station. Somebody got us a copy. We put that one on the radio too. And of course, the thing that was fascinating on that show was not only Statesboro Blues with the kick at the end, right, and the jam, but Dimples. And you never hear Duane singing. Yep. So I brought that with me because I felt that if you're going to do a second anthology, that's got to be cleaned up and put on. Absolutely. Through Sandlin, I think this was through Sandlin, he took me into a tape archive and he came up with the other Muscle Shoals tracks, Happily Married Man, and No Money Down.
No Money Down.
So those things slayed me. So you got Duane. Now you've got 3 tracks, 3 songs potentially with Duane Allman singing vocal, unheard of. And as a fan and from a music standpoint, credible, authentic, and credible. And you know why Greg sang.
Yes.
And why Duane made him sing, and why Greg really didn't play guitar with the 6-man band.
Yeah.
But still, Duane singing, as a Duane fan, if you're a Duane fan, you got it. Those are special things. Those are the only songs, and those from the first album. I don't know if there are any other songs where he's singing. There might be.
I actually, it's funny. I did my homework on Anthology II today, but as you talk, I can look it up. But I don't think so. I want to say so you are the reason those 3 tracks saw the light of day at the moment that they did, because you knew of them and you understood that we needed Duane singing. That's a part of his arsenal and a part of his development as an artist. That's pretty cool.
Well, on those songs also,
man.
I was in there with Johnny and his assistant engineer, Ovi Sparks. And when we took those tracks, and I was involved in the remix, and they gave me a shot on that one too. That was always cool. Yeah. I didn't get money on those, but on that original, I think you'll see on the credits on the original, I think there's a remix credit. But put that aside, that's where we started with Johnny. And then again, I got a lot of background information on stuff, and had my list of songs the way they thought they should be sequenced, and would kick that with him and also with the guys up at the office. And Phil and Frank saw this stuff. I typed it out. There was also a guy named Glenn Ashmore, who was kind of a administrative guy for Capricorn, who was in effect, I guess you'd call him my supervisor if there was a supervisor. But and he's a nice cat. I don't know. I think he may have gone back to Nashville in the music business. But at any rate, you know, you got the R&B, you go early, you got the R&B stuff, you get the dobro country stuff. And I think Johnny picked out, I'm trying to come up with a song that would work from Idlewild South. And Johnny Sandlin suggested Leave My Blues at Home. I think that's on there. That's it, right? And here's what he said. He said the guitar stuff that they did, this is what Johnny said. I don't have this verified, but Johnny, no, I would say he would know. He said that Dickey and Duane, when they do their guitar stuff, they're working on Ovation guitars.
And I just made fun of Ovation guitars the other day on Twitter.
Well, you know what? And I've mentioned, and again, I'm just saying that was now remember, this is 1974 and Ovations were kind of popular and cool, but they used them in the studio, obviously. They don't, you verified or not.
I'm not, that is probably one of my least favorite songs from the original era. I actually, I love the concept of the song. I just don't, it doesn't flow for me. The one I really love, and okay, so here's my relation to the anthologies. I was thinking about this the other day. So I was living in Orlando, I went to college there, and was living there right after college. And every night on the classic rock station in the mid '90s, they were doing the Southern Fix at 6, and they had this Duane expert come on one day and play "Happily Married Man" and "No Money Down," and they also, I remember they played "This Midnight Rider," which I love that song. It's so different from anything else they did. It's not very representative of them as a band in that era because it was it's such a contained song. But that version blew me away, and I was like, wait, there's like more they haven't released. Like that definitely comes from a show. Whereas the rest of that, I ended up actually buying because I think that's from the final Fillmore East show broadcast, like the 6/27/71, that Midnight Rider, isn't it? I don't think it was recorded at Fillmore East.
Now I'm going to tell you.
I'll look it up. I got it right here. I guarantee. Yeah, it's June 27th. Yep. So I actually, that's the first bootleg I ever bought. I went to the store. It's like Southern Revenge or something. It's got the rebel flag on it. It's back here somewhere. But so you mentioned about the, like you had this list, you knew these songs, you had made this pitch, you now get the opportunity to pull this together. Okay, you had a list. How close to your original list was the final one as it rolled? Do you remember? I mean, even vaguely.
Yeah, and I've got notes in a composition book that I kept with me at the time that actually has got a lot of stuff in there. I was writing down ideas before I got down there. I got to find that too.
Oh my God, yes, please.
Yeah, it's somewhere up in the attic. I know.
Hey, listen, put it in your will. I want to see that bad boy. That is incredible. Whoa. Because T.Y., I don't think about, like when you get a thing like this in your teens or 20s, like, you don't think about the fact that there's a whole lot of thought that goes in. It's not like you kind of create a canon out of your work. So please continue. I wanted to set up. That's why I think it's important, at least for nerds like us, record nerds. Allman.
Yeah. Now Midnight Right. So yeah, I wanted to get, so here's the deal. I wanted to get something that we could use that hadn't been heard before.
Yep.
And something special. And we did get, obviously, and Phil and Frank and whoever does the legal must have cleared the deck on that one. So the one thing, there were a couple of things that I learned. One, Phil gave me a insight into Love Festival.
Yep.
Which I never knew about until he told me about it. And he was talking about that there's film and recordings, but there was some legal and some other shit on it that didn't know if it would ever come to light. But in a subsequent conversation with him on my original list, which was this one's got to be on there, was Beads of Sweat, Laura Nyro. And Phil called me in. He said, we're taking that one off. He and Clive Davis got into it. And it may have had to do with Love Festival. There was something that might have been part of Love Festival or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but there was something that went down that wasn't good, and he wouldn't let him use it. So he said, let's go with Aretha, It Ain't Fair. Not a bad substitute.
Yeah. I actually prefer that to the Wait. Duane, there's something about the way Duane plays guitar.
Well, that's why we put King Curtis the Wait on, because I think he slams it on that one too. And
in fact,
yes,
it's really funny because you know, at first you're like, it's the same arrangement, and now and then I realized why they did that is let's pump another product out there, not for this, but that's why King Curtis recorded that song in Atlanta, put it out, because it was a hit with Aretha, similar version. Let's throw this out. Let's sell some singles. Same arrangement, basically same musicians. It looks like it's almost all Atlantic. So, but clearly Nora, Beads of Sweat was that would have been Clive. Columbia. So was this relatively easy to pull together from a rights perspective in '74? Because you said you got there in May and this was released in '74, right?
Yeah, it was. It came out, I want to say, in August. So it was and that may have been why they just let me loose on it. They must have had to. Of course, I never thought about this at that point in time. I was just taking it all in. But obviously, they were on a release deadline. This thing had to get done. It had to get done. So once I got in there, I was basically there for about 2.5 months. So I'm just trying to think where we go from here. So at any rate, the track listing and all that, I was very satisfied at the end. I thought it hit all the basic notes, and it got coverage on Samudio, Otis. Some great records, some great songs, some great playing.
That Otis Rush cut is so underrated, under talked about. That I like Otis Rush a lot. I like that West Side.
Well, Sam Samudio, Going Upstairs, that's a wild ass cut.
Yes. And
Samudio, I would have him on the Elvis radio channel at various times. He lives in Memphis.
Okay.
Yeah, and he would come in from time to time. And I would, we off air, I think we talked once on air about the fact that he got a Grammy on the liner notes on that album, Hard and Heavy. And then off air, I asked him a little bit about the sessions and whatnot, and he, is a little fuzzy on that point in time for all the right and wrong reasons.
Basically
right reasons. That's a long time ago for that cat.
Yeah, well, you got long time, and you got like the idea of preserving memory, and also, artists. Yeah, and I've learned this talking with artists, right? Like their ability to articulate the kinds of questions that really get to the bottom of it is not supernatural to them, because they articulate through their art, so and music is a for most is a constant process of creation and invention. And so, I remember it was very popular. Like Greg didn't like to listen to the old stuff, and I was always like, why not? That's the greatest stuff ever. Well, I totally understand, because he's still making music today. Number one. Number two, I imagine it's a little bit painful sometimes to think what is. And if you listen to him sing, Adam's song on his final record, where he chokes up at the end and they left it in, he died in the middle of his song, about his brother. And you know, I you know, Sam, and any of them, you know, memories are fuzzy things. Like this is, you know, like your memory is actually pretty locked tight. But there are still details, right, that we have to match up elsewhere, and that's, you know, a historian's job, and it's why I love talking about it, because it's just like, it's so rich with detail. All right, so you don't handle permissions, right? You just said I'm just going to put this list together.
Right. Let me go back to the song list just for a quick second.
Sure.
Because, and again, thanks to you, you said you were listening to it, so I had to put it on, and I haven't listened to it from track 1 through for years. I put that on. So here are a couple of sidebar notes that you might get a kick of. So I just told you the backstory. It ain't fair. We talked about the weight, Otis Rush, Ronnie Hawkins. I think that record, those records with Ronnie Hawkins are historical because of who Ronnie Hawkins is and his connection into Dylan. The whole thing, it all comes together, and here he is, Duane Allman. So you've got the Ronnie Hawkins stuff in there. Also, it's a cool album cover. One more Pickett, Born to Be Wild, and Duane tears it up on that song as well. Hourglass. I had to come up with an Hourglass song, and Johnny Sandlin, when we found the Muscle Shoals stuff, he found this Hourglass song. Been Gone Too Long, and I'm fuzzy now. That may have been recorded in Muscle Shoals.
Yes, that was one of those
and
demos.
So it was soulful R&B, and it's certainly come back around from Greg's career post Duane in many respects with the vocal. But I thought that was representative of where Hourglass should have gone from there in the direction that it did not. Of course, that was done after, I believe, I don't know timing on that, if it's done before or after LA, but
right in the middle. So that was April of '68. They recorded these demos down in Muscle Shoals, and this is one of those that they took out to LA and said, "Hey, this is what we want to be." Johnny would have known, that Johnny lived that story.
So here's a great sidebar. Stuff you got to watch with a stinging guitar R&B lead guitar solo, Arthur Conley. Who would have thought about that? This is back in 2014. They were doing a commemorative sign at the site of American Studios with Chips Moman. Chips was there. All the Memphis boys came in from Nashville. Huge Memphis celebration. It was Elvis week of 2014. Of course, I was with the Elvis channel at that point running that. But George Klein, who grew up with Elvis, a big name DJ and TV guy here in town, and was our, God bless him until he passed back in 2019, did every Friday afternoon on the Elvis radio channel. George had a bunch of people there that came out for this American thing with Chips, and it was really cool. We could get into that part of the business at some point down the line if you ever decide to go in that direction. But he introduces me to a guy named Dan Greer. I'd never met him before, and he's a songwriter from here in Memphis. He was there for the Chips Moment thing. And George says he wrote songs with George Jackson. They did stuff with this artist. He did some stuff with Goldwax, and he did an Arthur Conley song. And I said, Dan Greer, Stuff You Gotta Watch. He goes, yeah, that's me. I said, been introduced to him, TY from Elvis Radio. I said, well, I'm going to take you back to my time in when I first heard the record and how it ended up on the Duane Allman Anthology. So at some point he was getting a check. God bless. But that was Dan Greer's Stuff You Gotta Watch. And then another one, and this is crazy too, because it's not really a great song, but it's Muscle Shoals, and the lead and Duane's guitar prod is cool.
Yeah.
Lulu, Dirty Old Man. So I had that song on, and I'm thinking to myself, why did I put this on? I go back in and stuff that I've watched. Go in. I said, of course I know why I put it on. Who wrote the song? Who co-wrote the song? Delaney Bramlett and Mac Davis. How about that combination?
I'm pulling it out. I'm looking because oh yeah. There we go.
Mac Davis, of course, was just getting underfoot with Chips and with Elvis. And over the years, God bless Mac, what a great guy. I had him on the Elvis radio channel on probably 3 or 4 occasions. Tells a great story that he wrote A Little Less Conversation for Aretha Franklin, but she never got it. But that I think that was interesting. And then Push Pushes we talked about. And, we could go on that at length. To me, that was where Duane's musicianship in the studio was headed in that direction. I mean, his playing is unbelievable on that record, I believe.
I agree. It's just the ugliest record album cover in the history of the world with half.
Well, if you got the original, it's kind of collectors with the felt and all that. Herbie Mann, Indulgence, 1972 or 7, whenever it came out. So and here's the one that what really killed me. And this would have been I think this must have been after Manley or just before Manley. I'm in the discount records bin at Syracuse University on Marshall Street. I'm thumbing through and I come across this black Atco cover, Atco Capricorn, I think, I'd never seen before. Pick it up. Johnny Ton McCoo. Whatever it was, and it was in the cutout bin. Whatever it was, did I have a car then or not? I must have had a car then, so it must have been whatever. I rushed back to my house. I was in my house at that point, so that was 72, 73. Open it up, put it on the turntable, and freak out. I'm opening up the light on. It's Berry Oakley. Shame. I'm going, motherfucker.
Yeah.
No, I called my buddy. I said, "Yes, over here now. But before you do, there's another copy at a discount. Go get it. I'll pay you for it if you don't want it." So Walk on Gilded Splinters was going on this record. And I love that Greg came back and did that song.
Yes.
What a killer version.
Yes. Tedeschi Trucks does a killer version of that song.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
So I wanted to get Dobro with Boz and Ronnie Hawkins, and then Samudio was more slide and something that people need to know. The Come On In My Kitchen from the concert is perfect. Oh, and then I made a trip up to Atlantic. They sent me up there to see if I could find anything that was stored up in New York. Mm-hmm. So I'm up there in their archives. I don't know who was taking me up there, but they let me loose. And there was Allman Brothers stuff because that stuff came out on the box set, the big box set.
Dreams.
One More Ride, a couple of other things, which we considered, but we didn't use. But they gave me a single by the Duck and the Bear.
Uh-huh.
Going up the country in hand jive. And I flipped out on that stuff and, of course, brought that down with me back to Macon. And the next time I saw Johnny Sandlin, I show it to him. I said, "Tell me about this." And he just laughed. He goes, "Yeah." He just, there was no real story other than, correct me if I'm wrong, from memory, the Bear is Eddie Hinton, is it not?
I believe so, and you've just put another piece back in my mind when you said that. And back to that Eddie Hinton record that I got at a record store 2 weeks ago, a couple weeks ago in Asheville, just because I was like, Eddie Hinton record on Capricorn. I'm legally obligated to buy this if it's within a reasonable price, right? And I put it on, and I'm like, shout Bama Limp. I'm like, am I listening to Otis? And I mean, listen, I revere Otis Redding, but I understand now why people bragged on Eddie Hinton's voice. Like I was really.
Well, I don't have that one. I'll tell you what. The first thing I did is I looked for that. First I did is Eddie Hinton, Capricorn. I know he did Capricorn. I think I've got that record. I'm not sure, but the first thing I did is I said I knew I've got that CD that my friend sent me.
Yeah.
And that's what I put on. Then I went back to the vinyl that I've got left, and I kept most all of my Capricorn stuff and Allman stuff. But I don't have that. That Eddie Hinton came out. I didn't get a copy of that, but I will listen to it. So going up the country, that's the story. And then you've got the Fillmore East. And I believe all those Fillmore East tracks are from Closing Night. Done Somebody Wrong? Or
this one says this the Done Somebody Wrong is from At Fillmore East. It's a version from At Fillmore East. Now,
and I think that was. I don't think it was an alt-take or an outtake. I think that's the real one.
Yes. And you did not get remix engineer. Ovi got it, at least on this particular on Midnight Rider. Did you get it on another one? Here it is.
You might see it on Happily Married Man or No Money Down.
Yep, there it is. Nice. Oh man, I'm talking to the. The Johnny Jenkins record is really fascinating for a zillion reasons, but Down Along the Cove, which was on that on the other anthology, I think is an outtake from Duane's solo. Like these were tracks, that basically Phil Walden repurposed for Jenkins. And I found a piece in Great Speckled Bird when I was doing research years ago. A guy named Miller Francis Jr. went down to Macon to interview as a part of the Tonton Makut record launch. And he has this long interview with Johnny Jenkins, who expresses no sense of, he does not hold back how dissatisfied he is with how that record went, how, it was basically a Duane Allman solo album with his vocals, kind of like that was how he felt about it. Walden had really kind of taken over by that point. It's an interesting article just for its own. I know what came of it, right? The music that came out.
Our Memphis Connect goes back to where Jeff Coliff is because Johnny came up with Otis, and that's how Otis recorded.
Yep.
At Stax. But I still love the Johnny. Look, if I don't care if Johnny's not happy with it, I can just tell you the first time I dropped the needle and every time I put it on, the record slays me. It's so cool.
I think that's a good point for us to wrap up on today's talk. And there's more to talk about but I agree with you. And I think what's really fascinating to me and what I'm going to take with this recording, I got to figure out how I'm going to present this, right? But I loved your deep dive on the tracks and like the decision to do that. That's like, for me as just a dude who loves this stuff, you said you were going to write a book. I'm going to tell you wrote a book, and I think this is records, CDs, even independent ones, books that you publish, things that you've written, like they're pieces of us that we do, and I just had no idea this was like this. You were one of those people, fan compilation. Let me pull a couple things. Let me, and the next thing like, hey, can you come down here and put this shit together for us? And then it's this killer set.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm just going to throw back on you. Coliff, early on when we first met, and it was Stax and Elvis connection, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But somehow our next conversation, we got into the Allman Brothers and the original band, and I said, "Well, I like listening to the Allman Brothers for a lot of reasons." And He sent me the Fillmore West digitally, just sent, I don't know, whatever it was. And I laughed to myself because my brother had bought me the CD bootleg off of eBay or something about 6, 8 years, 10 years before that. But I hadn't listened to it again since he sent it to me. So I listened to it. And in chatting back with him, telling me about a cat he knew who was getting a PhD on Duane Allman at MTSU. Cool, man. I said, that's fascinating. I think that's great. That's fantastic. So that would have been, I guess, Jeff's been here about 7 or 8 years. So this is quite, and I don't know when you were at MTSU, but at any rate, put that aside, we're driving back from Santa Fe 2022, and my phone rings in the car on a state road coming out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, from some area code I don't recognize. Didn't answer it. 5 minutes later, the same call comes back. I say to Pam, I said, I think I maybe should listen to this. Pick it up, and there's this kid who says, are you T.Y. Tony Yoken? I go, who's this? He said, well, my name is Baden. I go to school at Virginia Tech, and I had a question. Were you on WLIR, and did you play the Allman Brothers? And I laughed. I said, yeah, that's me. So he's an Allman's freak. He was like a sophomore. He's asking me all these questions. And he says, do you have any cassette tapes? I laugh. I say, yeah, probably up in the attic. So at any rate, we engage in some texting and conversations. He sends me a list of all the concerts he has and says, I'll make you copies and send them to you. Just tell me what you want. So I pick out the shows that I've been to from whatever, send it to him. Didn't hear it back, but in our text, and that's fine. In our texting at one point, maybe in our first conversation, I mentioned to him, I hear there's a real expert guy who got a PhD at Middle Tennessee that evidently is a go-to person. Now, I don't know what his connection was. He had another connection, but he's really wired in. Here's the funny thing. After I met you and got the book, I sent him a message back with a link and just said, as a fan, now he was an aeronautics major. And I said, you better do well at that. That's a good future for you, not music, trust me.
Right.
But I sent him a link on your thing. I've never heard back from him since. But when I think Jeff told me, or I must have seen a promo for it on that Stax put out, or they put out at Crosstown for you. And I said, okay. And then at any rate, that's the rest. But what I was going to say is I haven't paid much attention to this part of my life. Now, once I retired, and I retired Elvis Week 2020 pandemic, I started going back and listening to, I found all the YouTube concerts from the Duane eras.
Yep.
And started listening to those when I was out with the dog or riding the bicycle, and was listening to those pretty regularly. But since we connected and I started to delve into your book and read your stuff, and I got the Paul book when it came out. I'm still working on that. I like to savor these things, so I take my time. But the stuff you are sharing and putting out there, man, I got to tell you, I just going to say it has touched me deeply. It's caused me to re-listen to things, listen to new stuff. I put on, again, I'm certainly aware of Tedeschi trucks, but because of your advocacy, I've spent more time with them and also getting a kick out of those Monk concerts that are coming on, because I never had an appreciation for Warren Haynes to the level that I do now.
Yeah.
And I saw him play here with Dickie Betts on that tour that came out on that Epic record. But I was never really a Haynes fan per se. But I've The last time I saw them was 2009 down in Orange Beach. They played outside with Phil Lesh and friends. That was a cool show.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you know, I appreciate it. And, you know, you're feeding it back to me in a good way.
Don't stop.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's there, and you know, you asked how I did it. What's really interesting to me, you know, one of the things with the unending conversation, which is this thing that's there that I've kind of been able to take, and it's one way to sort of block out the criticism and the trolls, is just to you know, like, I find this interesting. I think you would too. And you know, you don't have to read the whole thing if you run out of interest, kind of thing. And you know, like, a lot of people do, and we're looking for that. And so, you know, I'm grateful because, you know, like, the book came out. I really started book launch in August of 2022. The book came out in October, and the last that calendar year, about October to October, was a lonely period of time in getting stuff out there and seeing things grow. And then it started the snowball, and really the Substack is where. And I'll probably slip some of these promos in, but you know, that longlivetheabb.com on Substack is really, you know, where I want to build a more permanent home and be more thoughtful. The other stuff I like to do is just because it's a fun way to pass your day talking Allman Brothers shit, you know?
So let's go off record from what you're doing here, but are you moving product? Are you moving the book? Is that going for you? Be honest.
Ish. So from a business model standpoint, that is why the Substack is so important, because I just don't get enough money on the book. So the biggest thing I did, Tony, the biggest mistake I made. I'm gonna stop this. Let's stop there.